Throughout high school, I always wanted to find the things that truly interested me. I went from my old view of becoming a doctor to becoming an engineer to eventually becoming a programmer and finally to a video game developer. But I find it pretty sad that when a lot of people think about video games, they think of either a guy with a red hat who jumps around or a violent game that puts the player in the position of a soldier and calls it fun. That's why I wanted to show a side of video games that is rarely introduced, the part that actually means something and can positively impact a player. Right now, my dream job later in life would be making games that are outside of this mainstream view and could be considered actual meaningful art. To show an example of this, let's take a look into an aspect of the game Persona 5 and how it relates to me and my high school experience. The idea of a persona was initially thought up by Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, and it's considered to be the aspect of someone's character that is presented or perceived by others typically in contrast to one's true self. In the game, it's shown symbolically through a mask. The reason that it's shown as a mask is because it's supposed to show the surface personality of a person that undermines their true soul and heart on the inside. So how does this all relate to me? Well, since my childhood was kind of rough, I quickly learned to create masks of my own personality in both public and with my family. This was really sad because it caused me to miss out not only on pursuing a lot of the things I love to do, but it also caused me to be a lot more retained emotionally and on the inside. What was especially hard for me in high school was because I felt like this outside personality of mine, where I was covering in a lot of my own thoughts, was valued more than my inner personality. Personally, I felt like the people that I was surrounded with couldn't be real if it hit them in the face with a brick. While I didn't have a problem with this at first, after a long time I realized that to be a good person and to make the changes that I want to see in the world, it's necessary that you be yourself and stand up for yourself, and that you can be real with your friends, family, whoever it is. That's why, since really around sophomore year, and mostly this year, I've made it a goal of mine to really take off my mask and show people the true me inside. That's why when I saw this taking place quite literally in the Persona series, I was astounded at how much I could relate to a video game and how meaningful it really was. In this scene of Persona, you can see the protagonist of the series have his so-called awakening, which is really the unveiling of his own mask. While it does seem to be very painful, and I can attest to that, the power that seems to come out of him after is far greater, and I think I can attest to that too. This scene takes place directly after the protagonist makes his first big act of disobedience in the story, and I think it was honestly really interesting to see how people like Milgram and Fromm that we heard from in our English class actually related to these themes of rebellion and freedom in Persona 5. While this was a particularly gruesome scene, I felt like it related to me and my high school experience really well, actually. To me, this shows at least one example of how video games can not only teach meaningful lessons, but they can also have a really great impact on a player, and therefore they can change the society around them as he or she would take those lessons to heart. For me, moving from a small private Jewish school of literally 9 people in my graduating class to a huge school of over 5,000 people meant that I had so many influences and so many different people of different maturities to look at. To me, this was such a blessing that I honestly feel like so many people overlook. And I feel like with some adjustment in the way that people act around Carmel High School, it can turn into a place where people show their inner selves, kind of just like how this video showed that I'm a geek on the outside and on the inside.